IMF downgrades its world economic forecast. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, widespread inflationary pressures, and higher interest rates that are increasing borrowing costs for both consumers and businesses were the reasons given by the International Monetary Fund for their downgrade of the world economy's outlook for 2023 on Tuesday. The 190-nation lending organization stated that, instead of the 2.9% it had predicted in July, it now anticipates a paltry 2.7% global growth rate in 2019. The IMF maintained its low 3.2% growth forecast for 2022, which would represent just slightly more than half of the 6% growth seen in 2017. The IMF stated that it is the lowest growth profile since 2001, with the exception of the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. The worst is yet to come, and 2023 will seem like a recession to a lot of people. In the upcoming year, the IMF forecasted that more than a third of the global economy will experience 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. It was expected that the IMF prediction would decline. The 2 largest economies in the world, the United States and China, are experiencing slower growth, and some important European economies are also experiencing economic difficulties. As its war against Ukraine enters its 8th month, the US and its Western allies have slapped crippling sanctions on Russia. Speaking at the IMF and World Bank meeting in Washington, Kristalina Georgieva, the managing director of the IMF, cautioned that the risks of recession are rising globally and that the world economy is currently experiencing a period of historic fragility. The IMF revised its growth forecast for the American economy from 2.3% in July to 1.6% this year due to the country's economic instability and swift consumer price hikes. Only 1% growth in the US is predicted by the IMF for the following year. The IMF predicts that global consumer prices would rise by 8.8% this year, up from 4.7% in 2021. The IMF predicted 3.2% growth in China this year, a dramatic decline from 8.1% growth in 2017. Coronavirus regulations and a crackdown on excessive real estate loans have hindered China's economic growth. Next year, China's economy is expected to develop by 4.4%, which is quite slow in comparison to the country's recent strides. The 19-nation European Union group that uses the euro currency is expected to have economic growth of just 0.5 percentage points, according to the IMF. As a result of stopping gasoline purchases from Russia in opposition to Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, its energy costs have increased significantly. In order to combat inflationary pressures, the Federal Reserve in the United States has sharply increased its main benchmark interest rate 5 times this year. This was done on the grounds that higher borrowing costs for businesses and consumers would cause them to make fewer purchases and slow the rise in consumer prices.